Okay, we're back. In this video, I just want to show you a couple of small things, as well as introduce you very briefly to the development panel, just so you can play with that. We're going to get into it in much more depth in a couple of units so that we can really be more methodical about it. But I wanted to talk to you about how to uh, use some of the tools to pick and choose what you're interested in, to reject some things, and then a little bit of development. And then in the next video, I'm going to show you how to how to select and export the photos that you want to work with and keep that development. And then there's another video which will show you how to make a contact sheet, which I mentioned earlier in the unit. Okay, well, let's get started here. So we're in library, and I imported everything. This is really important. It's something I harp on. You're going to get sick of me talking about it. But when you import things from your card uh, into Lightroom into a folder, just bring everything in. Don't try to go through and just pick the 5 photos that you want to work with. Lightroom is designed so that once you get everything in there, it makes it really easy for you to sort through and organize and reject. You're very likely to leave behind photos that you really like, or to get confused about what you imported or what you haven't. So just bring it all in. And you can see that's what I did. I shot 57 photos, and I like some of them, and some of them, frankly, are really terrible. I overexposed or underexposed, I photographed the ground. Uh, these kind of things will happen to you too. And there's a really easy way to deal with that in Lightroom. Okay, so I went over the view modes here in one of the previous videos. Let's just go ahead and show you a couple things. One thing is I can actually give ourselves a little bit more room. We don't need this panel right now. I can just click on that so that we can just look at the individual photos. I'll go ahead and leave that left panel up, and I'll show you a couple of things. That was actually zoomed, and to zoom on something, all you have to do is click it. This is definitely not worth zooming on. This is terribly overexposed, and it's not even a picture of the fig tree. So this one I actually want to reject. This is the very first one I want to do it. Wish I hadn't imported it and shown it to you at all, but that's all right. I can reject it, and that is down here. This is the flag and reject. These are two opposites. So if I like it, I'll flag it. If I don't like it, I'm going to reject it. It does not delete it off of your disk. It just marks that you're interested in getting rid of it. And by the way, if that doesn't show up, check this little arrow here, and this will give you the option to select flagging. Notice if I take that off, it goes away, and that just brings it up. There's more stuff there that we'll talk about later. Okay, so you can just click through, and I'll tell you a quick shortcut that I really like for this, which is just to hit the X key, and that will reject it. And I like that because I usually, especially at the beginning when I'm kind of getting myself set up, and you notice I'm just rejecting all of those, I make a lot of photos I don't like much and I don't want other people to see. So I'm just using the arrow key, just going through. Now, the opposite may happen when I stumble on something I like. Now, I like this. I'm going to call that a pick. Now, I can do that 2 ways. I can hit the flag, and that's going to mark it as one that I actually like. The other way, when I find another one, ooh, I really like that one, is I can just hit the P for pick. And I like that one too. The thing is, those are very similar, but I want to be able to compare them. If I'd only brought one in, I wouldn't know that the other one was even more interesting. Now, remember, I can pick quite a few because you're going to make a contact sheet or a sheet of small images of 20. You're going to pick 3 for your final submissions, and we're going to work on that in the next video. But this is just going through and just sort of clicking on the ones you like. Now, you notice I was getting kind of experimental. I encourage this. This one's overexposed, but I kind of like it. So I'm going to go back and pick it. I'm not going to reject it. I'm not rejecting ones. Oh, I like that one. So I used a really slow shutter speed there to see if I could get the leaves to move. I'm not going to reject anything except unless it's really terrible and underexposed like that. I like that one. I'm just going to go through And notice how quickly I'm going through. This is 57 photos, and I can go through very quickly, just clicking on them, doing picks and rejects. I kind of like that one. Not so much that. And then, oh my goodness, I don't know what I did, but I totally screwed up. And there's a whole bunch here that were just totally overexposed. Just kicked myself, but that's what I like the reject button for. I like that one. And I was experimenting with the focus here, and so I kind of like that because it's all overexposed. Oh, I love that. I get really excited. That was nice. And I like that one. And I think that's it. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go back to the grid view and show you something cool. Now I have to pull this up. So this is called sorting. If it's not there, pull up the sorting, and you notice right now the sort is on capture time. That means that this is in the order in which I photographed them, and that's definitely it. I shot those really bad ones at first, and then it got better. Now that I've marked them, I can go in and I can actually sort them by pick. And what that's going to do, super cool, it's going to put all my favorite ones at the beginning and all the ones that I rejected at the end. This is nice because I can just sort of focus on these. Okay, and now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and move over to develop. But before I move to develop, I want to actually choose the one I'm going to work on, because in develop we can't be in grid mode. So I'm just going to look through the picks and decide which one I want to develop a little bit. Let's look at these again. Okay, cool. I wanted to do, let's do the very first one. That'll make it easier. So I'm just going to go here and I'm going to go to develop. And you see everything on the side changes. Let me bring that window in a little bit so you can see what's going on here. On the left, you're not going to see all of your folders anymore. Later on, we'll play with collections. You will see those, but you will see the history of what you do with the photo. Now, this is something really important that we'll get into more later. One of the advantages of Lightroom is as you develop it, it's not making any permanent changes to your image. It's just giving it a set of instructions. So you don't have to worry about doing anything that's going to actually permanently change the photo. You can always go back. And again, we're going to get into more ways that you can use Lightroom to actually keep track of that later. But for now, we're just going to do some basic development. And that's going to show up here in the history. Don't worry about the rest of this stuff yet. You can play with anything you want, by the way. I don't care, but I don't want you to do anything for your assignments that I haven't actually taught you how to do yet, unless I'm specifically saying mess around with stuff. So for this assignment, I don't want you to go anywhere outside of these bounds. I want you to just stick here. And later on, I'm going to walk you through some very, very precise ways of working with this. Today, I just want to show you the crop tool. And your rule is with the crop tool is you should hardly crop at all if you can resist it. You should be shooting the photo pretty much as you did. But with this photo, I might just take a little bit of that out. So that's one thing you can do. And the crop tool, by the way, has all sorts of options you can play with. You can change the angle of it. I'm not going to do that on this one. And you may have played with this in other programs. It's very similar to programs you might have played with on an app. And once you get done, you just click done. But here's the cool part. It's not gone. If you go back, it's still the same. And even if you go back to crop, you can change that crop anytime. The other thing I'm going to show you is a little bit of the basic panel. Very, very basic. If you want to convert to black and white, you could play with that. Don't turn that in, though, unless you turn it in as an extra. You can play a little bit with the white balance, but I want to get into this a lot later. The main things that I want you to take a look at here, you can just do exposure. I don't want you to adjust it too much. And by the way, I will notice that. Contrast. These we're going to get into more in our later stuff. These things here we'll get into much later. They get into some much more advanced things. But go ahead and play with anything on this panel. Just see what happens. Don't get too carried away. Do some minimal adjustment. Let me just show you one more because you could have something like this. And it's a pretty cool photo. It got a little bit overexposed. And I can just experiment. Now you can see that if you're really overexposed, it's not ever going to look quite right, but you can go ahead and experiment with that. And so that's about it for the tools and development. In the next video, I'm going to talk to you about how to select and export the 3 photos that you've chosen for your final